Hello again, Steve here with a few comments on this whole Tommy Robinson being thrown in jail situation. And this is the third take I'm trying. The last one was on time lapse. It didn't work out too well. Anyway, for those of you who don't know who Tommy Robinson is, he's a guy who I would describe as a freedom activist of some sort. And his specific work is on exposing the Muslim rape gangs, which have been responsible for thousands of young girls being groomed and raped, and sometimes in the most heinous ways of being nailed down to chairs, and in one proven example, being turned into kebabs afterwards. So, and he's not the only one. The EDL, I believe, the English Defence League, is his organization that he founded to expose these sorts of behaviors. But he's not the only one, and he has the backing, I believe, of the SAS, the Sikh Awareness Society, who has been trying to raise awareness to this situation for, well, let's say hundreds of years perhaps, but especially in England for the last 25 or 30 years perhaps, because their girls have also been targeted by these gangs of unbelievably sadistic people. And this has been the mainstream media, the police, the politicians, the courts, and everything else have been turning a blind eye to this for years, and it's only probably because they've been shamed into otherwise. They're finally taking some of these people to court. And Tommy Robinson, among other things, he is also a reporter, and he was standing outside the courtroom in a public area, allegedly, filming people coming and going or whatever. And he was arrested by the police and summarily sentenced to 13 months in jail, apparently. And it's amazing how swiftly they moved. I mean, it's just astounding how swiftly they moved, just in how swiftly they moved with, not allowing other people into the country not long ago. Activists who are bringing awareness of things that the government doesn't like. I'm speaking of Lauren Southern, for example. Whereas these rape gangs have been doing this for years and years and years, and denial on the part of the media and the police and all that sort of stuff, to the point where even fathers, apparently there's been instances where fathers turn up to where they find out where their girls are, where their daughters are, and the police arrest them and leave the daughters with these rape gangs. I mean, it's astounding. So he's been putting his best foot forward, Tommy Robinson has, to try to bring awareness to this. And, well, he's arrested. And the court system seems to work very swiftly when it wants to, because within a few hours or a day or whatever, he was already locked up for 13 months. And even his lawyer is stating now that, apparently, that the reason they want him in jail is so that he gets killed. They want this guy gone. They want him to be rid of, because he goes against their narrative of, I don't know what, destroying England, I guess. I mean, England has been a very successful country. They ruled the world for quite a while. And there's the old saying, that success breeds tyranny, because when there's a lot of success in the country, the government gets a hold of a lot of money and it just destroys itself. So it seems like they're actively trying to destroy England. So I have a message, and I hope that we can learn something about ourselves for this as well. But in terms of a message to the people of England, I would say this message is mostly directed at the men of England, Englishmen. Englishmen, if you want your country back, take it back. I mean, you're not going to be giving it back. You're going to, and this is a weather balloon, right? These control freaks who want to destroy England, basically, they are using this as a trial balloon. Will the English people do nothing or next to nothing? And if they do, then they know they've won, right? But if let's say 1 million men march, not with a request anymore. No, it's beyond requests. A demand that Tommy Robinson be released. Especially, let's say, if they were joined by a few rogue, as far as the state is concerned, police officers who are actually going to stand for their oath of office for once. Because guaranteed, the people who arrested, the men who arrested Tommy Robinson, were acting outside of their oath of office, guaranteed. Because he was arrested on charge of breaching the peace or something like that, or a threat to the peace. He was reporting. He didn't have a baseball bat. He wasn't calling for a bunch of people to come down. He wasn't inciting violence. No violence took place. In fact, you could make the case, and some people have made the case already, that, you know, if the cops were, if they could pretend to be upholding the peace, they should probably arrest the judge who sentenced Tommy Robinson, because he could potentially be killed in prison. And if he is killed in prison, then the judge should be arrested for creating violence in society. But anyways, no, I would strongly suggest, that a 1 million man march with a demand that he be released. And with 1 million men, he will be released. And that will be the starting point of having your country back. And the next message is to the control freaks of England. I mean, how stupid are you? How stupid are you? You're putting a pressure cooker lid, another one, on top of this situation. Because it's the only thing you know how to do. You don't know how to negotiate. You know how to be violent. You were spanked. We can get it. You were abused as a child, guaranteed. And you're acting out with abuse upon others. But logically, this isn't going to work very well. History is ripe with examples of, you know, you try to abuse people long enough. Look what happened in Germany. The Treaty of Versailles imposed slavery basically on the people for decades and decades. Well, along comes an eloquent man who's leading a movement, who says, we're going to get out of this one way or the other. And they take it, right? And what happens? Disaster. Well, you know what? Tommy Robinson's a pretty reasonable guy. He's not a racist or anything. He's just saying, hey, let's apply the laws equally to everybody. And you throw him in jail. Well, the next guy might not be so nice. The next guy might have a lot stronger movement. And by the way, by banning by scrubbing the internet of any reports of this, do you think that actually works in this day and age of archiving? Are you kidding me? You know, there's all kinds of people. There's millions of people who are reporting on this sort of stuff now with archived information. It's ridiculous. And you are creating the seeds of discontent, which are going to come back to bite you big time. And you know what? The problem for you is that heads are probably going to roll. You know, literally, when this happens. It's not something that is wished upon anybody. And I would say that probably what's going to happen, what could happen in a case like this, is the next regime, by this strongman who gets control, he's going to have control of the Royal Navy. The Royal Navy's going to go parcel out a part of the Middle East, a new Liberia kind of place, which is, if anybody knows the history of Liberia kind of thing, and they will start deporting Muslims. You're creating an awful disaster right in your midst. So what can we learn from this, though? Because there's always a lesson that we can learn from these extraordinary events that are taking place in real time, creating history in our midst. Well, it's an example of Tommy Robinson is an example of somebody who stands for what he believes in. Whether we agree with it or not is another issue, really. But he's standing, and I've heard him in an interview that, look, this has gone beyond me anymore. He said, you know, I will die for this. Absolutely. I mean, here's thousands of young girls being raped. They're innocent. They're not even mature adults. And I got to put up with a bit of slander and spit in my face and get thrown in jail once in a while and maybe killed. That's a small price to pay for him. He's a man who's standing on his principles, who says, you know what? This is what I believe in, and I'm willing to die for it. You take 1 million men in England who are willing to do that, it's game over. It's game over for the ruling classes. And you'll have your country back. So for us, what can we learn from that? We can learn to be people who live on principle, no matter what it is. I'm not talking about that it has to be in this direction. I use the example of my son right now. He's now working in a job doing door-to-door sales. Can you imagine? There can't be a harder job in the world. Hardly a harder job in the world than that. But no matter what he's up against, the weather, people tell him to get the fuck off their property, having not a great day the day before or whatever, he still's got to get out there again with a positive attitude and try to make a sale. That is standing on something that is overriding the individual momentary comfort of kick the can down the road. I'll just go get something else, I'll get a warehouse job or whatever. No, He's standing with that and he says, I'm going to do this. And that's something that we can learn a lot from, I think. Yeah, I really admire people, whether I agree with them or not. I mean, Dean Clifford is another example, the guy from Manitoba, where a bunch of new laws were drawn up for him as well, just like there was for Tommy Robinson in England. Yes, new rules, new so-called laws were drawn up that if you have a large internet following, the book is supposed to get thrown at you if you're ever arrested. Go figure. Well, same thing with Dean Clifford. I don't agree with many things that Dean Clifford does. I don't agree with his socialism and so on. But you know what? I admire it because he stands for something. He says, no matter what, I'm going to stand for it. They can shoot me. They can kill me. I'm going to die anyway. I'm going to stand for it. That's amazingly admirable. And we can probably see, if we're really honest with ourselves, there's probably 10 or 15 people in the history of humanity that have made a difference enough to change the course of history for humanity, for the better. And these people we remember, right? And most of them have been killed in prison, and so they've been enemies of the state. All of them, because the state is always the enemy of progress. It's always the enemy of justice. It's always the enemy of freedom. Because it's people who say, I have the right to rule over you. Read the Queen's coronation oath. I solemnly swear, God, under God and so on, to rule over the people. Can you imagine how conceited somebody has to be? What would you think? Hey, I have the right to rule over you. Yeah, go pound sand, Steve. No, of course not. It's ridiculous. But these people will behave in a way that they believe that. That's not people we want to remember. The great people of history are people like Socrates and Aristotle and Jesus and so on. Whether they exist or not, I don't know. Whether they're just all stories. But what did they stand for? They stand for principle. Principle, principle, principle. And even the Buddhists, they talk about the precepts. Precepts first, precepts first. Don't steal, don't thieve, don't rape people and so on. That first. And then go forward from there. So I think we can learn a lot for ourselves about that. About being people of principles. First, foremost, and always. Hopefully, if nothing else, even if Tommy Robinson is killed as a result of this, hopefully he's a martyr for the cause. But standing for principles, in my mind, is the only way of life worth living. Steve here again, great chatting. Talk again soon. If you like what I'm doing, please like, subscribe, and share, and comment in the box below. Bye for now.